What's happening? Happy Friday, happy night 2 of the NFL draft as we preview the second and third rounds coming up in just about an hour or so. First, I want to thank all of you. You hit our goal. We hit the goal of 6,600 subscribers last night. I appreciate every single one of you, the hard work that you put in by liking and commenting and subscribing and supporting this program, supporting this live stream, supporting this channel. Can't thank you enough. So we hit the goal of 6,600 last night. Thank you. The next stop, of course, 7,000. 7,000 subscribers. The next goal. Mandatory minicamp, June 9th. That's the goal. We want to hit 7,000 subscribers by June 9th when mandatory minicamp begins for the Patriots. We're going to do a night 2 preview right now. And then I want to remind you that after the 38th pick, if the Patriots pick 38th, let's just say after the Patriots' next pick, we will be back here live shortly thereafter to talk about the pick, to talk about 69 and 77, what else might be happening in the NFL draft tonight. So we're going to do this live stream right now, preview night 2. After the Patriots' first pick, we will be back shortly after to talk about the pick, preview, talk about what else is happening, all that stuff. And then I will bid you adieu on your Friday night, and we will meet up again on Monday, unless there's some huge breaking news over the weekend. All right, that's the business. Before I get to previewing night 2, I do have some leftover Will Campbell thoughts after the pick last night. My first thought is this: experience matters. And Mike Vrabel hit on this during his press conference last night. He was talking about LSU's offense. And here's what Vrabel had to say, quote, LSU threw the ball a ton. He, as in Will Campbell, had more drop back snaps than pretty much anybody else in college football. LSU threw the ball 50 times. It wasn't RPOs like everybody else. He's pass protected. He's run blocked. He's coming out of a pro system, and that matters. Experience in a pro system, so many drop back snaps through your college career matters. And it matters more now than ever because we've talked about this. Offensive line play isn't very good in the NFL. Tackle play isn't very good in the NFL. A lot of these pass protectors are coming out of college incredibly raw. They don't have as many snaps with pure dropbacks as Will Campbell did. There's just tons of RPO offense and quick stuff to help their offensive lines out. And Vrabel's telling us, you compare what LSU did offensively to a lot of other programs, you will see that LSU ran a pro-style offense. They threw the football a ton, and they left Will Campbell out on an island plenty of times. And so that experience matters. I also want to make sure that I underline a couple of things here that I don't think I've done a good enough job underlining over the past couple of months. This arm length wingspan debate, that conversation, I'm not going to dive in too deeply about that. But I do think context matters. I understand the numbers. Mike Giardi's done a great job of throwing out the numbers and telling us how Will Campbell would be an outlier historically given his wingspan and his arm length. And it's a fair debate. It's a fair conversation to have. It is absolutely a back and forth that should happen when we talk about Will Campbell and his Patriots' future. However, not every single offensive tackle prospect that had shorter arms, not a great wingspan, not every single one of those prospects had the type of athletic profile that Will Campbell has. And that matters because your athleticism will help you manage some of the other issues that you have, like shorter arms, shorter wingspan, your footwork, your quick feet, your athleticism overall. And when we talk about the lack of arm length and lack of wingspan, we should also mention that Will Campbell is, relatively speaking, an athletic freak. He might not look like he's built out of granite. He might not look like the perfect prototypical Hollywood casting of an NFL player. But Campbell is ridiculously athletic. I've talked about relative athletic score before. Will Campbell has the 15th highest RAS since 1987 at the tackle position. I mean, this guy, when you look at the 1,600, however many tackles since 1987 that have been run through this RAS, Campbell's in the top 20. So yes, Will Campbell's arm length and his wingspan, if he's successful at left tackle in the NFL, it would be an outlier. But Will Campbell's athleticism to go along with being 6'6", 325, that is also an outlier. And it's not fair to pay attention to the quote unquote negative outlier while not paying attention to the positive outliers. He's a freak athlete. He also has a ridiculous football IQ. Coaches say he's like another coach. That's why he nailed the interview process. I was watching last night NBC Sports Boston. Burt Breer had an anecdote of Will Campbell during the pre-draft process where he met a bunch of people in a room with Mike Vrabel. And Vrabel went around the room and everybody said their name and they kind of said a little bit about themselves or whatever. And when they got done going through everybody in the room, Vrabel asked Campbell if he had it. And Campbell went around the room and remembered everybody's name and remembered what each person said. So his football IQ is through the roof. His athleticism is freaky. And both of those things theoretically should help him compensate for the lack of wingspan and arm length. And I don't think enough people have talked about those things that can combat the length issue. I don't know if he's going to be a left tackle for the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years. I just want to be fair to the young man. All right. Let's also talk about some numbers and some production from Campbell and how good he was at the SEC level. Pro Football Focus wrote this about Campbell last night. Campbell might not have ideal length, but he produced at a high level for 3 years in the SEC. Campbell ranked in the 95th percentile of all FBS tackles in Pro Football Focus pass blocking grade on true pass sets since 2022. So in true pass sets at the SEC level, Pro Football Focus had Campbell ranked in the 95th percentile of pass protection. So yes, he loses at times. Every tackle loses at times. He's had rough games. My buddy Greg Bedard has talked about the Arkansas game a number of times over the past couple of weeks. But when you put it all together and you look at his career in totality, Pro Football Focus has him in the 95th percentile of pass blocking in true pass sets through his 3 years at LSU. Here was Matt Miller of ESPN on the pick of Campbell last night. He gave the pick an A+. And he wrote, Campbell's combination of size, strength, and technical ability is unmatched in this class. At 6'6" and 325 pounds, he's a force to be reckoned with. Campbell is a physical specimen with the agility to excel in the modern NFL, making him a top-tier talent at a premium position. Top-tier talent at a premium position. He's talking about tackle. The Patriots have been searching for a franchise left tackle and solidifying their offensive line for years to come. With Campbell, they not only fill a significant need, but also get a player who is ready to start immediately and develop into a cornerstone for the future. So I would just hope when we have our inevitable conversations about Will Campbell's length and measurables and all that stuff during camp, and we hear a lot of people screaming at the top of their lungs that he doesn't have long enough arms and his wingspan's bad, and they make the T-Rex jokes. I just want to make sure that we understand. And hopefully some of you will counter those arguments and say, yeah, but wait a minute. The dude has freakish athleticism, outlier strength, outlier technical ability. Just have the fight back. Just have the fight back. Hopefully, he's the guy. Hopefully, he's a Pro Bowl left tackle. If Campbell ends up being a Pro Bowl left tackle, last night's pick's a home run. If he's an above-average left tackle, last night's pick was a triple. If he ends up being an average left tackle, last night's pick was a double. But there's no doubting, at least in my mind, there's no doubting that the Patriots upgraded last night at the left tackle position by drafting Will Campbell. And even if Will Campbell's questionable length issues end up causing problems down the road, Will Campbell is still going to be markedly better than what we've seen from this football team at that position for the last 3 years. And Mark Daniels wrote about this today in Mass Live. In 2022, the Patriots moved Isaiah Wynn to right tackle because he wasn't a left tackle and he wasn't even a tackle when all was said and done. But they moved Isaiah Wynn to right tackle. Trent Brown went to left tackle. Daniels writes the plan was a disaster. Trent Brown allowed a career-high 8 sacks. The Patriots in 2022 allowed 41 sacks. Woof. In 2023, the Patriots struggled with injuries to both tackle spots. The team started guys like Trent Brown and Calvin Anderson and Connor McDermott and Vidarian Lowe. In 2023, they went from 41 sacks in 22 to 48 sacks in 2023. And then the chef's kiss was last season. The Patriots allowed 52 sacks last year. That was the most since 1999 and the 6th most in Patriots history. Vidarian Lowe ranked 69th out of 81 tackles via Pro Football Focus. Demontre Jacobs ranked 81 out of 81. So last night, you upgraded significantly at left tackle. Even if Will Campbell ends up being average to above average, you upgraded significantly. Couple more points before I get to previewing night 2. And don't forget, by the way, to throw your comments in. Let me know what you want to see the Patriots do tonight. 7 minutes per pick in second round. You have 7 minutes to take the pick, make the pick. 5 minutes to make the pick in round 3. Of course, the Patriots have picks 38, 69, and 77. Let me know how you feel. Let me know how you feel about Campbell now that you've had almost, a day to talk about it. All right, just a couple more points, and then I'm going to move on to night 2. Do you remember what Mike Vrabel said at the free agency press conference when they had Milton Williams and Carlton Davis and Morgan Moses and Robert Spillane out there talking? Do you remember what Vrabel said? Nick, he said a lot. What are you talking about? Fair point. Vrabel at that press conference said, we want guys who want to be here. We want guys who want to be here. Vrabel wants to get rid of the complacency. He wants guys that believe in the program. He wants guys that believe the Patriots can turn things around. That's what he wants. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that comment from Vrabel at that press conference because of what Will Campbell said last night. Will Campbell was asked, when did you know that you were going to be drafted by the Patriots? Will Campbell's answer was, quote, this is where I've wanted to be since the start. Elliott Wolf came to my practice probably about week 5 of the season, and I told him this is where I wanted to be. We've had great connections throughout the entire process. I told him and our area scout, Alex Brooks, that I wanted to be a Patriot, and that happened in the middle of the season. I've had great interactions with everybody throughout the process, a lot of them private workouts, 30 visits, just being up there, getting to meet everybody. It's just where I wanted to be, and I'm super excited to get there. And when I read that quote from Will Campbell last night, I couldn't help but go back to what Vrabel said during that free agency press conference, wanting guys who want to be here. And Will Campbell, before Mike Vrabel even showed up to Foxborough, Will Campbell had told Elliott Wolf and some other Patriot staffers, I want to be in New England. That's where I want to go. He felt a connection. He wanted to be here. And that matters. When you have guys that have that buy-in and they want to be here and they want to be a part of this organization, it matters in that room, because if you've got some guys that don't want to be here, if you've got some guys that don't want to be a part of this organization, guys like Will Campbell will get those other players out of the locker room. And that's when you talk about culture. Final note before we get to night 2, and I got some super chats that I see that I want to get to. The Patriots last year were criticized for not reading the board correctly, not understanding that wide receivers were going to go, not understanding that the tackles were going to go, Reportedly, they try to trade back up into the second round. They try to trade up into the first round. They were incapable of doing that. Last night, the Patriots read the board correctly, and they deserve credit for that. Greg Bedard, on the podcast I recorded with him today, Bedard said that Vegas was very interested in Will Campbell. Bedard said that he knows that Vegas was interested in Campbell, and it was absolutely a possibility, if not probability, that the Raiders would have drafted Campbell at 6 if he fell to them. Now, maybe not. Maybe they still would have stuck with Ashton Genty. But Bedard said that he knows for a fact that Vegas was interested in Campbell. Then you look at the 9th pick, the Saints. The Saints picked Kelvin Banks from Texas, and I like Banks a lot. But they drafted Banks at number 9. Where is Will Campbell from? Monroe, Louisiana. Played at LSU. And if the Saints drafted Kelvin Banks, the next left tackle on the list, because Membu's a right tackle, if they drafted Banks, it's not far-fetched to believe that the Saints would have loved to draft the hometown boy, Will Campbell, at number 9. The fact that Campbell went 4, and then the next left tackle was Banks at 9, and then you had to wait a ways later on to find the next few guys drafted. The Patriots read the board correctly. They got their guy. They jumped on him at 4. So people that are afraid about him being a huge reach, there are plenty of rankings out there that had Will Campbell in the top 6 or 7, that had Campbell in the top 10. And the fact that Banks went 9 and that Vegas was reportedly interested in Campbell at 6, they picked the right time to jump. And they made the pick. All right. I'm going to get into night 2 of this draft in just a moment, but help me out, will you? Don't forget to click that thumbs up for us. I know you get tired of hearing it, but I've got to keep pumping it because that's the way we gain support and the community grows. So don't forget to click that thumbs up button and like this podcast, like this channel, like this live stream, like it all. Don't forget to throw a comment in. What are you looking forward to tonight? Picks 38, 69, 77. What do you want the Patriots to do? Throw your comments in. And don't forget to subscribe. The next goal, we're cranking towards the next goal, 7,000 subscribers by mandatory minicamp, which is June 9th. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate every single one of you. Let's get to night 2. Phil Perry last night, NBC Sports Boston. He said something that was music to my ears. I didn't hear this until this morning because I went back and I watched some of the stuff. Everything was flying so fast. So I went back and I watched NBC Sports Boston's coverage, at least a chunk of it. And Phil said something very interesting, and it literally made me dance. It made me dance. Here's what Phil Perry said last night on NBC Sports Boston regarding this draft and what the Patriots' plan was heading into the draft and what he believes the plan is for this draft. Quote, "The plan is for this to be a 3-day-long Christmas morning for Drake May." I'll read it again because it made me feel so good when I heard Phil say it. The plan is for this to be a 3-day-long Christmas morning for Drake May. Perry went on to say, "It's my understanding that the Patriots were very open talking to May about their affinity for Will Campbell. They even sent Drake May some clips of Campbell from LSU. And Perry said this, there will be more. There will be pass catchers. I believe there will be a running back. There's going to be more weaponry coming Drake May's way this weekend." And I said, thank God. Thank God, because that's exactly what they should be thinking. They should be thinking that they are going to lavish Drake May with a bunch of Christmas gifts. And that last night was just the beginning, using the 4th pick on a left tackle, a guy that seemingly is going to fit perfect with Drake May. If you read about Will Campbell, if you watched him last night and what he had to say to the media, if you watched him earlier today at his introductory press conference, certainly feels like Drake May and Will Campbell are going to be like this. Going to be like this, son. Certainly feels that way. So this was going to be a 3-day Christmas morning. This draft was going to be a 3-day Christmas morning for May. It started last night. And that's exactly what they should be thinking. That's where their head should be at. Let's continue to support our young franchise quarterback. Let's not screw this up. Let's give the young man some help. He showed flashes last year. He's not there, but he showed flashes last year. And there were times that he looked like a potential top 5, 8 quarterback in the league. There were times. Again, I'm not guaranteeing it, but I'm high on his potential. I was high on Drake May last year. Don't screw it up. Do what you got to do. Music to my ears. All right. More thoughts coming up in a minute. But I got to get to these super chats. My guy Tobias, appreciate you with the 6. Draft party in Germany, part 2. Let's go. Hit me up when you come out and visit Germany. I'll give you a tour. I'm going to hold you to that, Tobias. Whenever I get out to Germany, whenever I get to Europe, I've been waiting and waiting my entire life. I want to get out there. I'm going to hold you to that. I appreciate you. Shout out to all those in Germany that watch the content. And I hope you have a great Friday, Tobias. Ryan Gilpatrick, $5. Thank you for the 5. Nick, what do you think we do with this 38th pick? Wide receiver? I'm leaning towards wide receiver. And I'll get to why in a couple of minutes. But there was an NFL insider this week that had something to say that makes me feel if you want a wide receiver in this draft, you want to utilize the 2nd, 3rd round, you want to look at number 38. So if I had my druthers, I'd be leaning towards wide receiver right now, especially now that Donovan Jackson's off the board. But I'll have more to say about that in a few minutes, Ryan. I appreciate you. John, my buddy John, $10. Super chat. Thank you, John. Cheers from a longtime friend. Watch all the content, as you know, hoping for Burden, Higgins, Knoll. So Luther Burden, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll, we'll get into some of those guys, or BC defensive end at 38. Let's have a good night. Let's have a good night, John. I appreciate it again for the 10. Means the world to me. All of your support, the super chats, liking, commenting, subscribing, all that stuff. All that stuff. All right. I've been saying this for the past couple of months, so this is not some kind of revisionist history. This is not to try to build up the excitement for tonight. I've been saying this for the last couple of months that there are going to be starters throughout the next 2 rounds. This draft, 2nd, 3rd round, is going to be full of guys that can start on day 1. Doesn't mean the Patriots are going to pick starters. They got to hit on the picks. But the talent is there. The starters are there to be had. 2nd round, 3rd round, you can walk out of tonight, if you play your cards right, with 3 starters. You could come out with 2 starters. If you swing and miss, you come out with the nothing. But there is legitimate talent that is left. And I'm excited because you're sitting there with 38, 69, and 77. As we said, you walked into this draft with 4 picks. Let's call it in the top 75 because you got 77. You had 4 picks in the top 75. Nick, 4 picks in the top 77. Fine, let's get technical. But that gave you the opportunity to draft 4 starters if you made everything happen right. Now, I don't go into a draft thinking any team's going to draft 4 starters. I think if the Patriots got 3 starters out of this draft, it'd be a great draft with, of course, the opportunity to maybe have a couple of other guys continue to develop and later down the road be a starter. But if you walked out of this draft this weekend with 3 guys that you say starter, 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 like Will Campbell's going to start. He's going to start. So can you get 1 or 2 more starters out of your 3 picks tonight? And then maybe you get lucky. Maybe you hit a lottery ticket later on. Who knows? But you have the opportunity. You have the opening to continue to support your young quarterback. There are so many valuable players left on the board at this point that I think it's unlikely the Patriots will trade up. I think the Patriots have to be absolutely head over heels in love with somebody to trade up from 38. Because if you just look at the board and how things have fallen, I mean, you got 10 guys right off the bat that you could argue could have been first-round picks. So I don't think the Patriots are going to have urgency to trade up unless there's somebody that they absolutely love and they're willing to give up some draft capital. I believe they're fine sticking and picking at 38 because of the names that are left on this board. Now, positions of interest, what I would be looking at tonight, I'd be looking at left guard. interior offensive linemen. Do you love any of them? I think you're looking at left guard. I think you're looking at wide receiver, specifically wide receiver. If you love one of these guys that has the capability, the ability, the versatility to play outside wide receiver, play that X that we've talked about for the past couple of years, I think you want to look at X wide receiver tonight. I think you want to look at running back tonight. Third down running back, speed running back, however you want to call it, phrase it. I think you look at running back tonight. I think you could look at a center tonight, specifically one center. We'll talk about that name later. And I wouldn't be shocked if you're looking for a long-term tight end, because there are two or three guys. There are two or three guys that are going to be out there in this second round, maybe early third round, that I think would be good picks. So if you look at that I think when you go in 38, 69, 77, left guard, wide receiver, specifically X, if you love a guy there, running back, maybe a center, long-term tight end. Now, I want to get to what I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago when Ryan asked me about wide receiver at 38 and if I think that's where they're going to go. Adam Schefter earlier this week, he said that there's expected to be a day 2 wide receiver run. And reading a bunch of things today on Twitter doesn't mean it's going to be right. But reading a bunch of things on Twitter, it feels like the wide receiver run is going to happen quick tonight. That there could be 3 or 4 guys that fly off the board at the top of this round. And so if you're the Patriots and you love a guy and you're wondering wide receiver or another position and you love both guys, how much will that expected wide receiver run impact your plan? That's why I think if you love a guy at wide receiver and you truly believe him, you believe in him, even though you've been burnt a bunch of times drafting receivers, you've got to keep going back to the well until you hit. You just have to. You can't give up drafting wide receivers because you've stunk at it. You got to keep taking swings. So if there is a wide receiver that you love, I think it's best to pick that guy at 38, because I do think there's going to be a big run. And if you don't trade back into the second round, you're obviously going 30 picks between your next pick from 38, 30, 31 picks, right? From 38 to 69. So you really can't take it for granted. If you love one of these receivers, you draft one of those guys at 38. Don't play games. Just like if you loved the tackle. You loved the tackle last night. You loved Will Campbell. You didn't play games. You didn't let it go by chance. You made it happen. You were active. You went out. You drafted the guy you loved. You filled the hole that you wanted to fill. Same kind of thing with wide receiver tonight, because I do think there's going to be a run at the top of this round. It would be very tough to wait until 69th or 77th and hope that one of these guys that you love falls to you. It's possible, but it's difficult. So here are some names. Jaden Higgins, we've talked about him. He's somebody to watch. 6'4", 215. I think he ran over 70% of his routes on the outside. He was Iowa State's ex-wide receiver. That's the role he played. So if you're looking for that ex-receiver, Higgins is a name. Jalen Knoll is a very good receiver, same school. Iowa State, played alongside Jaden Higgins. Knoll is more of a slot receiver. He played 70% of his snaps at Iowa State in the slot. So Jalen Knoll is another name. Luther Burden is very interesting. Luther Burden, if we go back to a year ago, Burden was being projected as a first-round wide receiver, and many would have argued, even before the college football season, many would have argued that Burden was going to be the first receiver off the board. And so here he is now in the second round. He didn't have a great year last year. Some of the body language stuff, I think, has impacted the perception, his reputation. But talent-wise, Luther Burden III was considered one of the top receivers in this class. And if he did not have a down year, he's a first-round pick last night. He's on the board. Another guy that I had in my mock draft was Kyle Williams, Washington State. Another ex-receiver, downfield guy. He's another name that you got to watch. So Higgins, Knoll, Burden, Williams, 4 names to keep in mind. Interior offensive line. I look at a couple of guys. I got 3 names for you that I think could be good fits for the Patriots, kind of fit the model that Vrabel's trying to build here, and would be nice compliments to Will Campbell on the left side. Tate Ratledge from Georgia is a top 3 ranked guard in this draft. He's damn good. He's out there. Wyatt Millum, who played tackle, he's going to slide to guard at the NFL level from West Virginia. He's another name to keep in mind. And Marcus M'Bow is another guy from Purdue, kind of a mauler. So M'Bow, Milam, Ratledge, those are 3 names, interior offensive line, that I think the Patriots could be looking at. Running back. There's a lot of running backs, as we talked about leading into this draft. A lot of running backs. Only 2, obviously, were selected last night. You got Genty, you got Hampton. So there's a lot of talent at running back. And I think running back would not be a shocker if the Patriots picked that position at 38. Let's start with Travion Henderson. Home run hitter, great character guy, great for the culture, played at Ohio State. I know a little bit about him because he's from Virginia, and I worked down in Virginia for a number of years. Travion Henderson is, I think, widely regarded as the 3rd best running back in this class. He's still on the board. Dylan Sampson, Tennessee, took a visit with the Patriots. Dylan Sampson is still out there. He's a guy that I would look at. I had Trevor Etienne in my mock draft. Etienne, I think, was the last visit to Gillette during the pre-draft process. He's still out there. He's on the board. And I could list 5 or 6 other guys. I'll just throw Cam Scatteraboo out there because I do think that he kind of fits the mold of a Mike Vrabel guy. He's tough, and he's got, again, great character, highly productive at college. So those are some names at running back. Henderson, Sampson, Etienne, Scatteraboo. Those are some names. There's others. Harvey, Giddens. I mean, I could sit here and throw a bunch of names. Again, there's a ton of running backs. But if you want somebody who you think is a true game changer, I think it would be Travion Henderson. I think it's Henderson or bust at 38 if you're going running back. I'm not so sure they would draft Sampson or Etienne or Scatteraboo or Giddens or Harvey or any of those guys at 38. So I think I'd be looking at Henderson. If running back is the target, if Henderson falls, he would be the guy that makes the most sense there at 38. All right, tight end. Mason Taylor, Jason Taylor's son. Very good tight end. Somebody that you could look at. He's still kind of raw, projects out to get even better over the next couple of years. I think he's good, if not really good. Of course, he was behind with, Loveland and Warren, but Mason Taylor is an interesting name at tight end. Elijah Arroyo is one of the favorite names, and there's a clip of Arroyo out there where he runs. He's on the opposite side of the field, and there's a turnover, and he jets across the field all the way down the field to make the tackle of the guy who came up with the pick. And it's one of those fantastic highlights of just pure hustle that Vrabel probably does jumping jacks when he watches it. So Elijah Arroyo is an interesting name. The Patriots, the Locked On Patriots podcast that I do, I had 3 names of undervalued prospects in this draft. One of those 3 names was a tight end, and it was Terrence Ferguson from Oregon. I think Ferguson's a fun player. You get the football in his hands, straight line. He's a yak machine. He can go down seam. He's versatile. So Ferguson is a name. I'm not so sure Ferguson would be at 38. I think if you're looking at 38, Mason Taylor is most likely. When you get to, later on, you're looking, at 68, maybe you start talking about Ferguson. Arroyo might go somewhere in between there. But Ferguson is one of my most undervalued players in this draft. And that's just with the eye test. I just like him a lot. So those are 3 tight end names. Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson. Center, I'm going to give you one name. One name as far as the next couple of picks. We all know about Drew Kendall. I had Drew Kendall going in my Patriots mock draft that I threw out there on Locked On. We all know about Drew Kendall, BC, yada, yada. Jared Wilson. Jared Wilson is the guy that's left top of the board at center. So if you want to get a young center Jared Wilson would be the name. I think you would have to draft him at 38. I don't think he's going to fall all the way down to 69. So if you're looking to address the interior offensive line, I think you're looking at Ratledge. I think you're looking at Milam. I think you're looking at Wilson. Those three names jump out. Maybe M'Bow from Purdue. But if you're looking at the interior of the offensive line, those are the names that I would be paying attention to. And also, I want to say this because we pay a lot of attention, and rightfully so. It's where we began with this preview of night 2. You want to support Drake May. You want him to have his Christmas morning every day of this draft, as Phil Perry put it. But there are a couple of guys on the defensive side of the football that at this point at 38, if they fall to 38, I don't know if you pass them up. And let me start with Mike Green. Top 15 talent in this draft. Serious allegations off the field. You guys can look into those allegations if you'd like. Some serious allegations off the field with him. I would imagine that's why he's still on the board. I don't think the Patriots would be comfortable, but I don't know. It all depends on the intel they have on the young man. But Mike Green's a top 15 talent. If you feel like those allegations off the field, if you feel like the allegations off the field are not as big of a deal as far as, did he do it? Are you concerned about him doing what was alleged? Then he could absolutely be picked at 38. But I feel like that's not going to happen with Vrabel here. I think he's going to stay away from Mike Green. So there's one other name that I would look at 38. And I think some of you know who I'm going to say. Donovan Ezaraku. I think Donovan Ezaraku at 38 is an absolute possibility. Now, he could be gone. Again, the early word is wide receivers and edge are going to be very popular at the top of this second round. So maybe he doesn't get to you at 38. But if Ezaraku is sitting there at 38, I think it'll be difficult for the Patriots to say no to him. The BC connection, long arms, explosive guy off the edge. I think Donovan Ezaraku would be rather high on the board of the Patriots tonight. So if they go defense, I would not be surprised if it's at defensive end. I would not be surprised whatsoever if it's Donovan Ezaraku. The Bill O'Brien connection, the Doug Marrone connection just makes sense. And many people had him going in the first round. So that's a name I would watch for at 38 if they go defense. George Pickens could be available. I'm out. I'm out on George Pickens. I don't think George Pickens would be a fit. I don't think he'd be a fit with Vrabel. I don't think he would be a fit with Drake May. I don't think that Drake May needs that noise. Pickens has been incredibly volatile on the field. He's been an issue, flags thrown, lack of discipline, runs his mouth a lot, is a headache for the quarterback. And I know we could say some of those things about Stephon Diggs from his prior years, but Diggs is mature. He now gets it at a higher level. I don't think Pickens is a fit for this football team. I just don't think he's a fit for this football team. So I'm out on Pickens. Out. Speaking of out, I'm out right now. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We will be back live shortly after the 38th pick for the Patriots. I'm going to go have some dinner. I'm going to crank up the draft. We will be back. I also want to say this before I forget. Charlie, $10 super chat. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks for the hard work. Happy about last night. Optimistic about the weekend. I am too. I really liked the pick last night. I'm not in the love category just yet, but I'm really happy with the pick last night. I really liked the pick last night. I'm optimistic about what they can accomplish tonight. They've got to hit on these picks. So let's keep our fingers crossed. I will be back shortly after that pick at 38. Until then, be well.